Hi everyone, this is Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and a big warm hello to my subscribers. I love you guys. Today I've got some super cute winter DIYs to share with you, and as always, I hope you enjoy the show. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. For this first DIY, you're going to need one of these Dollar Tree Believe signs. You don't have to have the Believe sign, but a rectangle sign like that. And I just put my paper up to a cute Let's Get Cozy sign online on my computer screen and traced it gently with pencil. And then I have two of those little wooden mittens that you also get from the Dollar Tree. And now I'm going to go ahead and give it a coat of my homemade chalk paint. I love this chalk paint. It's super opaque. One coat performs absolutely beautifully, and it's cheap to make. I have two videos, so lots of choices for you with different ingredients depending on what you want to use. I use probably all of them at some point. I think my favorite is video number 2, the very last ingredient right now. That's probably my favorite. But go ahead and check those videos out. They'll be down below in my description box. It's really fun and cheap to make. So you saw that I colored pencil on, I just scribbled pencil on the back of that so that I could transfer the words, and that worked nicely. And then I'm tracing them, and I'm going to go ahead and fill them in with a permanent marker. And now I'm going to use a little nutmeg brown from Apple Barrel Paint and paint those little mittens. Now the Dollar Tree mittens have a slightly engraved design on one side of them, and you'll see how I handle that in a minute. And because this was a Christmas reversible sign, I did end up painting the Believe white. I just wanted it to pop a little bit more, and I did use the sign during Christmas time, and then I just flipped it over, and now we're using it for winter. So now I'm using the permanent marker again. It's just a Dollar Tree permanent marker this time, and I'm going around the edges to age and distress and make the sign look a little chippy, I guess, and used and old. And that's it. It's a really easy technique. You can use furniture pens, you can use markers. It all works, and it's super easy to do, especially on small signs. It's a perfect technique. So back to the little mittens here. I end up, I thought maybe the paint would cover it. It didn't. It just looked weird. And I end up taking pencil, just tracing the exact same design on the other one. And look, we have a perfect match. Super, super cute. Works out great. And we have two opposite mittens now facing in opposite directions. I'm going to go ahead and glue them in the upper left-hand corner of this sign. So I felt like these were missing just a little something. I don't know why. I just thought they would be cute with a little bit of faux fur painted on. So we're just adding a little bit, we're kind of tapping it there with a sponge to add a little bit of faux fur around the mittens. And then I'm just using my brown paint again to touch up any areas that, look like it's going over too much, just to make it nice and neat. And that's it. I think this came up so cute. For this DIY, I'm using a Dollar Tree palette, and I paint it black, and I get some of the white yarn from the Dollar Tree as well. And we're just going to go ahead and make little tassels for this tree. This is actually a 3-tiered tray, or a tiered tray decor piece. It's perfect for winter. Nice and tiny. It's perfect for a floating shelf. You can put it on a mantle. You can put it anywhere, but it is a tinier craft because the palettes from the Dollar Tree are tiny, so they're perfect for that kind of use. So there's lots of videos out there on how to make tassels. I do mine super simple. I just wrap them around my fingers. They don't have to be perfect for me anyway, because I'm going to trim them at the end, and I just tied it on the top there. I made 3 of them, and I'm going to glue them up, cascading upwards to make a little yarn pine tree. And then using some of the Dollar Tree black ribbon, I'm going to go ahead and garnish it with some black ribbon and white beads. And I chose yarn to make this because I think yarn is perfect for winter. We kind of knit our sweaters out of it. Our sweaters are made out of it, even the store-bought ones. So it just kind of ties that whole theme in of that coziness. And I think it's super cute. This is a leftover wine bag for those of you that watched my Christmas video where I used a wine bag and wrapped it around a Dollar Tree sign. That is a little bit of the trim there that's kind of thicker, and I thought it would make a perfect trunk for this tree. And we're all done. Oh, I love the way this next DIY comes out. You're going to need a Dollar Tree charger plate, and I'm just going to take it and paint it white with my homemade chalk paint. Next, using some more of that nutmeg brown from Apple Barrel, I'm going to lightly paint the edges. I want to bring out these really pretty little bumps that they have. They have like little beads that are part of the plate, and I think that looks really decorative and pretty. It's just naturally there. So I just kind of tapped it out and softly put that on, and I'm sticking with a nutmeg brown because I think it's nice and warm, like cinnamon for the winter. It's just kind of a nice color. Now, these were some picks from Walmart. Walmart had absolutely gorgeous winter picks. I had no idea. I went in there for something completely unrelated after Christmas and turned around and saw that, or maybe it was like a few days before Christmas, but it was after the Christmas rush, and I didn't expect to find that. I thought they would all be sold out, but they were flocked pieces of pine and really, really beautiful. And I was originally going to paint pine trees on this plate, and I decided to knock it up a notch and actually make a 3D version of that by using these little floral picks. I hope the camera picks them up because they are beautifully frosted, and you can see how I'm just cutting pieces of it. I kind of cut off the end of that thick plastic piece. It's really simple to do, and then I glue that fragile top little thin piece up at the center to cover that and make it look like a tall pine tree, leaving the thick part down below as the trunk. And I do that with two other small pieces too, and you can see that one's curved there, so I'm showing you I'm going to snip off little pieces right there to make this fit in the plate better. But you need to save those pieces if you decide to do this craft, because there's some bald spots that you have to fill in afterwards to make it look like a pine tree. So I'm just straightening it out there with some hot glue. It's that simple. And you're going to see me add those little pieces back in on both of the small little side trees there to fill them out and make them look like pine trees. Oh, and I forgot to mention the reason I was so excited about finding these picks is they were 97 cents. So like all we crafters do, we step back and look, and if it's missing something, we add it in. I decide to take some more of the nutmeg brown and give it a nice inner shadow, like a nice, I guess, border on the inside, because it was just missing something. It was a little bit too white, and that was it, and I think it came up so beautiful. For this next DIY, you're going to need a Dollar Tree candle with the little gold top. You don't have to get the gold top one. I just think that was perfect for winter. And you just peel the label off. It comes off really easy. This is another great tiered tray decor piece, or for a bathroom, or part of a gift set, a gift basket, or even on a coffee table. It's just really, really pretty. And you needed the colored glue sticks from the Dollar Tree. And one of those glue sticks in there is gold, really beautiful, sparkles. And I'm just using my glue gun, and I'm going to go ahead and take the hot glue and make some beautiful gold pine trees on the front of this candle. So my candle is just for decorative purposes only. I won't be lighting it because I don't know if the hot glue will melt or not. And I have seen things like this in department stores, except that it's usually, plastic or something hard that won't melt. But I never usually burn those candles either. They're just decorative. I just thought it would make a really pretty winter decor accent piece. And I can already hear some of you saying, "Oh, Holly, you have such a steady hand. I couldn't do that." You'd be surprised. You can make corrections by remelting the glue gently. You just kind of have to float it over. I don't really have that steady of a hand, and to be honest, this is my first time doing this, and I think it came up really cute. For this DIY, you're going to need craft sticks and some paint. Now, I just ordered a bunch of craft sticks from Amazon, and I didn't realize how big the package was when I got it. So I thought I have to think of things to do with these large craft sticks. And I just started gluing them together to make a tree, and then I thought, you know what? I kind of like the winter houses I do every year. I think those are so pretty. So I thought, Holly, we're going to try and do a combination of something that gives the vibe of a tree and a house and kind of maybe like a barn, like a winter barn or something all in one. You'll have to let me know how I did, but this ends up being one of my favorites. It's really, really tall in real life. It's super heavy when you lift it, and it's going to be like the centerpiece on my mantle to kind of start off the whole winter mantle look. And you're just taking your craft sticks. As you can see, I glued the two, I started off with one at the bottom and glued two on either side at an angle. And now I'm just kind of cascading them up like little ledges on a tree, I guess. You can see I'm not going too close. I guess you could space them however much you want. If you want it to be more, use more craft sticks and have a smaller space, you could do that. But I did it this way. And like I said, I'm really pleased with how this craft came out. So after I feel like I have the tree look, I top it off with a little rooftop to give it the house look. And then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to start cutting these craft sticks down so that you can't see the side of them. And I'm going to crisscross them back and forth, kind of like what you see with an old windmill or a barn. You just kind of see that look on farms. And that was it. That was kind of my interpretation or version of getting a winter tree, a winter house, and a rustic barn or windmill or something like that all in one craft. And I went ahead and made 3 of them all together, one large one, medium one, and one small one. And we're just going to give them all a quick coat of white paint. So I'm using some pine that I got from Amazon that was absolutely gorgeous and a great deal. The link will be down below in my description box. I was putting all my supplies down in the description box, and I try to for each craft if I'm using, particular things that I talk about. But I did set up an Amazon storefront, and all that does is make it so that everything's kind of condensed at the storefront, so you guys can actually see photos of everything instead of just the links, which is kind of cool, I think. So you can also click the storefront to look for things, and you'll recognize stuff that I use there. And I'm just gluing some of that winter pine on the top, as you saw, all 3, some white winter berries, and it looks really, really nice. And now I'm taking one of the little pieces of wood now that they sell at the Dollar Tree. They're almost like a furring strip, a little piece of furring strip there. I'm gluing the 2 bigger ones in the back and the smaller one in the front. And then I step back and go, you know what? I need to paint this white. I think it will look better white. So I go ahead and I give that piece of wood a coat of white paint. Now I was thinking I might put the little bottle brush trees from the Dollar Tree in here, but those pics from Walmart, look at them, that's more of them, and they're just a tough act to follow. So I decided that would be really pretty at the base of this and really celebrate winter, and we're all done. I love this. This next craft is a lot of fun. You're going to need some Dollar Tree chalkboard tags and a chalk marker. And this is from Target, $58.99. You see those contemporary trees, that's really on trend right now. Those real, well, they can either, I think that's why they're popular right now. They can go either way. They can go for the primitive look, or they can go for the modern look, or they can go for the rustic farmhouse look. It just depends what colors you use and what you're doing. But they're super easy to make, and this is something that you can do with your kids or at a party, because anyone can do this. They're, to me, the designs are so simple that they're, it's within everybody's ability to draw some fun, cute trees. And I think it's that whole primitive homemade look that makes this whole look popular. So I don't do exactly what I saw on the Target sign. It's just kind of my inspiration piece, and then I do my own little trees and I have my own little take on it. Now, originally I made this craft to hang as a garland on my ladder. I was just going to string some of the Dollar Tree nautical rope back and forth on the ladder and hang these up. But I had the ladder decorated kind of intricately for Christmas this year, and so I didn't want to take it all apart, and I had filmed this when it was still Christmas time. But this is what we end up with. We're all done, and I think it's a totally cute, simple DIY. For this next DIY, you're going to need the Dollar Tree Christmas tree form, and you could also just make it out of poster board if you want to get a cone shape or a foam cone shape. Any cone shape would work for this. This is actually my daughter's favorite DIY. She loves this. So I start off by taking all of the garland off, and that's what you end up with. And I decide to go ahead and paint it white, because for what I'm going to do, I kind of can, foresee that if there's some peekaboo areas, it's going to be, not noticeable if we paint it white, and very noticeable if we don't. So I start off with my chalk paint again, paint it white, and now I'm going to use the Dollar Tree mop heads, and you clip those off. They've made them better quality, which is the good news. The bad news is I'm finding them harder to clip off. The little plastic piece in there, I really had to really work it to get it off, but it came off. And I tie 3 of them together. So I start off by tying them at the top with a knot there. So there's a little bit hanging on the top, because that's going to be the top of my tree. And then I braid them with 3. And I want to do, well, you'll see, I do an even 4 of these on either side. So I do one on one side, then the opposite side, and then on the sides, I do the exact same thing. So we have that frame to start with. On the opposite sides, I don't have that long plastic piece running down, so you saw I just added a little bit of glue on the middle circles there to hold it in place. So after I start off with that 4-point frame, I want to fill it in, but I want to do it with different sizes. I don't want to do just the thin braid, because real sweaters kind of look more knotty, and they have texture around the arms. There's seams that might have a different knit or stitch. So I wanted that look. So I end up taking 2 of the yarn threads, gluing them together, and then gluing 3 of those together for a total of 6 strands altogether. But you can see I'm grabbing 2 of them at a time now and braiding them, because I want a much chunkier knit. So here comes the important part of this tutorial. You can't go all the way to the top because it would be too thick. So you go as high as you can, and you're pinching the top of your little braid together and kind of spreading the other pieces apart, gluing the sides with the hot glue like you saw me do. I guess that's why we film it. So some things you can't explain, you definitely have to see it. And you'll see how I'm just gently manipulating it to disappear into the other threads. I'm pushing it over to straighten it. I'm just taking my time and gluing on the plastic on the side of the yarn. It's all designed to hold it in place and make it look like a solid unit. And when I'm all done filling everything in, I just go around and look for any areas where there might be a bigger hole, add a little bit of glue, stretch the yarn out a little bit, pinch it together. Again, really easy to manipulate the yarn thread because it is bulky and kind of stretchy and puffy, and so you can loosen your braids gently. Just be gentle with everything. I wasn't too hysterical about, if there's little holes here and there, because that's what a real sweater is. I just wanted most of it glued together to add stability and obviously to make it look like it's more solid. And you just have to be, again, really, really gentle with everything. And you can manipulate the thread. You can loosen the braids really gently to make everything come together that way. So now I'm just taking and cutting the top of the tree to give it a little haircut and make it nice and even, and that's it. I think this is so cute. For this craft, you're going to need 3 jars. I used spaghetti sauce jars. I took them outside and spray painted them and then gave them a little light sand, and I'm going to glue some of the Dollar Tree burlap ribbon around it. I actually used organic spaghetti sauce from Aldi's, in case you guys are curious. They're mason jars. They say mason on the top. See that? So when you sand them, that shows up, and they are perfect for farmhouse decor. So keep your eye out for those. And now I'm taking some of the Dollar Tree twine. I'm going to wrap it around the top. I love that look. But I found the easiest way to wrap these around the top is to start by tying them on the top. And because there's little ridges on the top where the lid's screwed on, I had to go really slow to get a nice even spread. I don't know if that makes sense, but I didn't want them all clumped together in one area, stuck in the groove. So just take your time with that. It looks really good, but take your time. And now I'm taking more of the jute twine, and I'm going to go ahead and hang those little snowball thingies of pom-poms. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. I love pom-poms. They have these little white pom-poms at the Dollar Tree. You could make them too if you wanted to out of yarn. There's lots of YouTube videos out there how to make pom-poms, but I went ahead and bought these. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of make some cute little hanging snowballs off of this because this is a winter craft. And I don't know about you guys, but I found out if I decorate with a little bit of cozy winter decor, and I put that up as a transition from Christmas, out of Christmas, I guess, from all the sparkle and everything. It really helps because my husband and I, we were getting a little down. We had this like amazing decor with all these sparkle lights and everything, and then nothing. So now I put up fairy lights, I put up winter decor, and it really, really helps keep the magic going all through January and up until Valentine's Day. And of course, the decor changes a little bit again. Now, I don't know if you guys saw that, so I'm going to show you one more time. The way I get the jute twine to look like it's sticking out of the little pom-pom is I put a little drop of glue on the pom-pom. You'll see me do it here. And I lay the jute twine on it, and then I roll the pom-pom around and pinch it together, and then I kind of shape it as it's cooling down and drying, and then the twine looks like it comes right out of the center of the pom-pom. So it's a nice little trick. And I'm just using some of that Dollar Tree confetti, gluing it on the front there because they have these really pretty sparkly snowflakes. This is when I do like sparkles, you guys. For the winter decor, I love a little bit of sparkle because, snow glistens if you go outside. Not that I get snow where I live, but I used to live up in the mountains and it snowed, and I remember how much it sparkled when the sunlight hit it. It's so beautiful. And of course, I'm adding some bells here because I just thought that was a nice little touch. I think that's cute. And this is what we end up with, and I love this. For this next craft, I used the snowflakes from the Dollar Tree and some garnish from the Dollar Tree, including that banner that I talk about in previous videos in the birthday aisle there. That little burlap banner, it is great for embellishment. Now, these snowflakes were originally covered with this cheap white tinsel, and I tore it off. It was gray. I took it outside, I spray painted it white, and now I'm taking some burnt umber and I'm just going around the outer edge. So I'm not going to go in the center of like it's like two different levels. There's a lower level to the snowflake that you can see, and then a higher level. So I want the higher level to pop out because it will look 3D, but I want the lower level to be a little shadowed and a little distressed. And now I'm just taking some of the Dollar Tree pine. For those of you that watch my channel, you've seen me do this many times. I give it a haircut really short, and it really kicks that Dollar Tree pine up to a more expensive looking pine, especially if you flock it, which is always an option. But today, because I'm just, I have a white snowflake, I thought flocking would make it look, it would disappear. So we're going to leave it green, and I'm going to cut 6 different separate pieces. Now, I got my inspiration from a Farmhouse catalog that actually had a snowflake that looked identical to this. They were hanging separate, they weren't attached, but they painted their silver. Oh, actually, they probably didn't paint it silver, it was probably metal. But anyway, I wanted mine to at least stay white like a regular old snowflake. So, you always have to make your craft your own. So I'm changing it up a little bit, but I loved how they decorated it and how they made it look, rustic and farmhouse. So now I'm cutting up that banner. I mentioned it earlier just to rehash. That is in the birthday section at my Dollar Trees. It's like a little banner you can buy, and it's all year round. So hopefully you guys can find that too. It's a great way to get a hold of some really quick, cheap burlap without having to commit to going to another store or buying a whole, half a yard or a quarter yard. Really easy way to get it for just embellishment. And we're going to do the little snowball trick again here, so you'll get to see it one more time if you missed it in the first DIY. That's how I get it to attach to the twine without it looking like it's glued on the back. I'm going to show you up close now. Sorry, it's blurry. My camera does up close, but if I move too quick, I'll make it blurry without realizing it's blurry, but at least you can see what I did there. So what you saw me do there was tie a little knot at the top, because after experimenting with it a little bit, I found that the twine was just kind of wonky and it was going all in different directions. But if I tied the knot, it made the little snowball pom-poms there hang more like bells at the bottom and just look a little more elegant hanging down together, and it was easier to glue on. And then I just added some pine cones, and I had this little beautiful sparkly little snowflakes left over from a Michael's floral pick that I got, but I love the way these came out. This next DIY is really easy. This is a Dollar Tree ornament and some napkins that I got last year on the clearance in the Christmas section at Target. I think I only spent like 97 cents. And a window box house from the Dollar Tree. It is such an elegant, simple DIY. I absolutely love the way this came out, and it was just your old-fashioned, good old-fashioned decoupage napkin trick. Does wonders, and it just really, really looks elegant when it's done. So the first thing I do is I trace this napkin out, and then I'm going to cut it out, and there are 2 layers there. I do pull the white layer off to make the top layer with the design on it, with the little snowflakes there, as thin as possible. And now I'm just pouring in some Mod Podge, and I'm going to go ahead and glue this napkin down. So after I looked at it, I pulled it back. I decided I didn't want this natural wood after all. I was kind of going for the natural forest, natural wood, because it's a winter craft. But this little guy was so elegant. He is so elegant. It's so weird how just a cheap dollar ornament, because of the glitter, it just looks so magical when I was working with it. I decided we're going to go with black, and I painted the inside and the sides. You know, you don't actually have to have one of these houses, you guys. You could just use any window box for this. You could even make one out of painter sticks and maybe poster board in the back if you're going to cover it, but it came up so elegant, and it's such a great craft for winter. For this craft, you're going to need a Dollar Tree Let It Snow wooden sign, and I took it outside and gave it a coat of white spray paint. And today I'm using one of these utility panels from Home Depot. They probably sell them at Lowe's too, or any big like home store. This is the same thickness, 1/8 inch, as the Dollar Tree signs are. Now, I've spoken about this before in previous videos. You can get 41 of the narrow rectangle Dollar Tree signs out of this board, and about 35 to 36 of the square signs. Now, they're just the standard signs that Dollar Tree has out every year. Whenever you see a square one, they're like a certain square, and whenever you see a rectangle one, they're a certain rectangle that's real skinny. So for me, since I do a lot of crafts, that would be $36 to $41. So this is a much better deal, and I have a little mini circular saw that I cut with that is perfect for this. So the next sign that's coming up here that I'm going to make is going to be equal to 3 of the rectangle Dollar Tree signs. You sometimes see creators glue those together using craft sticks or painter sticks, but this is another reason I love using that wood, because you can keep it all in one piece. So I took this board outside, I spray painted it with black spray paint, and then I just misted it with white spray paint just on the right side of the board, and I purposely towards the end barely sprayed the little knob down. I don't know what that's called, that little top sprayer part. I'm drawing a blank, but I did it so it would drip and leave like those little blots you see, so it would look a bit like snow. But this theme for this little piece of art here is going to be like a winter night, like a magical winter night. I used to live in the mountains, and there was always fog, and the moon would light up the trees like this, and I could see the snow. I miss the snow a lot, and it was just so beautiful. So I'm trying to catch the energy of that in this craft. Now, I am not a painter, you guys, by any stretch of the imagination. For those of you that watched the previous video where I painted a pine tree, I literally just dry brush at an angle downwards like that and paint my trees. This time I chose to use a little more paint on it, but the most important part of this whole thing is that you dry in between each layer if you want to get that 3D look and that dimension look that makes it kind of look real soft and magical. You have to dry in between each layer, and I started with the middle tree first because I want that one to look like it's further back, and the two on the side, either side is forwards. Now you're going to see me make a mistake, and I left it in here on purpose to prove to you that I'm not that good of a painter. This is why, you guys, I spray painted and I didn't paint the board with acrylic paint, because I knew if I made a mistake, it would allow me to take a sponge and scrub the acrylic paint off without damaging the board underneath, as long as you don't do it too hard. So keep that in mind too. If you guys aren't good at painting or you're not confident, for the base, like the canvas, use spray paint, because that, obviously the adhesion is much stronger. I use black primer spray paint. So I am working with 3 colors here. I have the forest green that I start with first, and then I move on to a standard Christmas green. You can use any Christmas green you want. You just want a brighter, lighter green. And I do all of this. You're going to see me do all of this. And I put a little snow on it, and I don't like it. So you'll see what it looks like when I wipe it away. And there I go. I lightly wipe away the snow. It was the snow part I didn't like, you guys. So if you do that, don't worry. I'm showing you. We always say this, crafters, don't worry. You can always paint over it. This is what you will have if you have to wipe it away, depending on how hard you scrub. I mean, you can go all the way down to the black, but you can start over, so don't panic. So this time I just got more definite lines in there. As you can see, the green, there's definitely more lines that look like pine in there. And now I'm adding the snow. And you know, in the end, it came up beautiful. I figured out, see how I'm kind of adding little chunky bits of white here and there? That's what I figured out made it look 3D when you start adding the snow. You can't overly dry brush with the white snow or you'll get too much of a blended look. You definitely have to have more paint on your brush and do those definite little chunks of white so it looks like it has snow on it. But I was really pleased with it when we were all done. It got a little scary there for a bit. So now I'm just taking a little brush and I'm going to do my snowflakes all over this picture. And that's it. It's a lot of fun to do, you guys. I recommend you try. Just keep practicing. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just as long as when you're done, you're happy and you're getting the feeling you want. And remember, you can always wipe it away and start again. For the trunks, I just used territorial beige, and now I'm going over it with the burnt umber. Now you saw me turn the brush sideways just to give it those little lines, because you know how the tree trunks kind of have those little lines in them. If you're ever in the forest, it goes both vertical and sideways, I guess horizontal. So last I brush over it vertical again to kind of blend it in, but I wanted that dimension in there, so it added a little realism. And of course, lastly, I'm going to glue the sign down. Now, see that hole at the top? That is driving me nuts. I tried painting it white and you still could see it, and it was just making the picture go from looking really high-end to just cheap. So I did whip out my spackling, and that's called polyfilla, you guys, in other countries. I don't know the name of it in all the other countries, but just something, a multi-purpose filler, I guess someone said, that will fill the holes. That's what you use. And then a nice little trick I've been doing for 25, 30 years, I'm not even sure now, forever, is hot glue while it's still hot. Use masking tape, put it down on top of it, and it kind of like melts the tape into it and makes a wonderful bond. But this is what we end up with, you guys, and I love this. For this DIY, you're going to need one of these Dollar Tree houses, and you'll be painting on the back of it. Now, I had some spare wood that I wanted to use up, so I'm using some wood that I copied and cut like that house. The first thing I'm doing is taking a large craft stick, and I cut it down to a shape that I thought would look cute for little windows, and I'm just using it as a template to trace some windows onto the front of this wood. Now, this wood was already painted white. It's part of a bed frame my son built for me, and it chipped apart when they removed it, and it looked perfect, so I didn't want to touch it because I'm going for the rustic look. If you guys are doing the Dollar Tree house, just go ahead and dry brush some white paint on it, maybe a little light dry brush of gray paint, very, very light, if you want to get a similar look as to the one I'm working with here, and then you're good to go. Now I'm using some territorial beige, and again, I'm just dry brushing it on there on purpose so it kind of has some light and dark areas there and looks a little worn off. And now I'm using the color khaki. These are apple barrel paints, and I'm painting a front door. Now, this piece of wood just happened to have a little chip where the front door knob would be. You don't have to do that, and the inspiration piece I was looking at didn't have that when I looked up winter houses online. But if you like that, you can easily imitate that using a little bit of shadow and paint and make a little doorknob. Mine just worked out that way, but I think it will look really good either way. And now I'm using a little bit of the burnt umber and I'm just framing the door. Now I'm taking a little bit of the nutmeg, again, all apple barrel paints, and I'm just going to go ahead and put some shadows around these windows to make them come alive and look a little bit more realistic and add a little bit of dimension. Now here's where I decide to change it up a little bit. This is the roof line where you bring it down. So I drew a line from the corner, that little triangle corner there, to the other corner, and I'm going to make the roof come down. The original inspiration piece just had the roof painted on the top and it had a chimney. I didn't want to do a chimney. I just wanted to have a little bit more, I guess, of a heavier roof on it, and that would look really, really good on the Dollar Tree piece as well. And I'm using a color here that's a brown, but it's like a rusty brown. It has a little bit of wine in it. I'm sorry, I don't have the name. This is a really old paint and it didn't even have colors. It had numbers to it, and I just happened to have it in my arsenal because it matched the color that I saw online. But you'd be looking for a rusty color brown paint. There were actually several houses to choose from in the lineup. Some of them had blue roofs, some of them had a brown roof with a mustard color, and then another brown roof that looked a bit like burnt umber, and then there was this color. And to be honest, you guys, it's such an odd color in my paints. I was just excited to finally have a use for it. That's why it's so old now I can't give you a name, but any of those roof colors would look just fine, or any color that makes you happy, that would look great. Now here I'm taking burnt umber and I'm making these little lines, and they were on the inspiration piece. I think they were meant to kind of look like bricks, you know, or maybe just give it some more character. I loved it, so I went ahead and included that. And I'm also going to edge this piece with the burnt umber all the way around as well to make it look a little bit older and distressed. Now, because this is a winter house, I decided I wanted to go ahead and frost mine up a little bit and make it look a little older too, and just give it more of a wintry feel. And that's it. I kind of tapped the top there to give it a little frosty roof, and I was so pleased with how the final results came out, you guys. Let me know what you think, but I love this little winter house. For this craft, you're going to need a mop head, some large craft sticks, any kind of little wood decorative piece that you want. And for those of you that don't have access to that, check out my video on how to make wood beads, because you can use that recipe to make any kind of little figure that you want. All you have to do is have some decent cutting skills and an oven, and you're good to go. So here, the first thing you have to do is cut that little plastic piece off. It's not too hard, believe it or not. If you have some strong utility clippers there, it's pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and take these craft sticks here and make a star with them. So you can make this craft in any size you want. I just chose large craft sticks because I wanted it to be a statement piece in my little farmhouse hutch, and then I ended up moving it on my mantle, you guys, but I wanted it to make a statement. For this part of the craft, I do recommend you use wet glue. I was using a wood glue. It allows the joint or the tip of the little stars there to act almost like a joint, and it moves, so you could make those corrections when you're trying to even out your star and get as nice of a shape as possible. If you use hot glue, you're going to be committed. If you're really good at making stars, you can do it however you want, but I'm not, so I needed to keep mine fluid and moving while I was, making that shape nice and even there. Now I'm just taking a little bit of the mop thread and I'm wrapping the corners up, and it was dry enough. Well, I used so little glue that it was dry enough to do this part. I didn't have to wait. I went ahead and wrapped it and it held together just fine. It was like the wood glue was kind of drying and sticking into the wood while I was making it come into a nice shape, or maybe I took a long time to get it into a nice shape and it was drying. I don't know, but it worked. So for this wrapping bit, you can use twine, you can use sisal rope, you can use regular old yarn. I love the mop thread. The mop thread kind of has a fuzzy appearance where it looks almost blurry, and it just adds like a coziness to it. It almost looks like a sweater. And you know how some DIYs you see where they cut up a sweater and they put like an arm around a candle and it makes it look all warm and wintry? This gave off the same vibe and energy, and it really, to me, the mops lend a natural primitive look to those of us that love farmhouse or rustic decor. It just goes beautifully. It also goes with boho farmhouse, so if you're into that, this is another great craft for that. But it really looks beautiful at the end with my winter, or maybe I'm too fanciful, but to me it looked like a little sweater around this star, and that's just the perfect theme you want for a cozy winter day. So I'm just wrapping up the 5 points here, and then we will move on to the next step. And this is what it should look like when you're all done. Now I'm going to go ahead and use some brown twine to wrap, just randomly wrap. There's no rhyme or reason to this part, just for the contrast and to make it look a little bit more rustic. And I just love this look, you guys. And you can use anything you want for this part, or you can copy me, it's fine. This is the Walmart twine. It runs about $4, I think, for, I want to say it's 10 yards, but I have had this going on a year now, and for those of you that watch my video, you see me use this all the time, and look at how thick it is. I mean, it was definitely worth, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it went up in price, because it goes a long way for the price. So very, very good piece of twine there. And now I'm using the Dollar Tree little pom-poms. I love those, they're so cute. And I'm just tipping the star. Little tips there with the pom-poms. It's adding to the coziness vibe that I'm trying to get. And for a wintry night where you can see the stars so clearly, to me stars are just part of what winter is, and I love how this came out. For this next DIY, you're going to need some thinner wood, some wooden dowels, and some skewers, and some really good clippers. I got these clippers here from a girls' gardening set that my husband got me for Christmas one year from Walmart. But I've seen these clippers in any gardening section at any store, so keep an eye out for them because they are really good at cutting wood, especially craft sticks, without splintering them. I mean, it happens sometimes, especially if you have a really strong fault line or crack in the craft stick, but for the most part, it works great. Now, I decided to cut those in a plastic bag. Great trick there, you guys, because they were flying northwest, east, and south all over my craft room. So go ahead and use some kind of plastic bag and clip them in there so that you can catch the flying pieces. And now I'm just going to go ahead and glue them down into the shape of a pine tree. You can see what I'm making here. I'm going to make some winter trees out of wood. I love wood. And as all of you know who watch my channel regularly, I love rustic farmhouse. So I love trees that are going to look a little kind of rough and wooden and homemade. This is going to be part of my winter scene that I'm going to be putting up on my mantle. So when you're all done with that part, don't forget to put a strip of hot glue on the underside just to hold these in place. They are on really good and tight when you do this, so I just want to make sure you don't skip this step. So I want a really crisp top, and I'm showing you there. I cut them at an angle and glued the top together there. That was easy. You just turn your scissors or clippers sideways and cut at an angle, and that gives you a nice beautiful top on top of your tree. For the next tree, I take some computer paper and I'm just creating a really steep inclined triangle shape and getting a pattern for that. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that paper down on some craft sticks. You see what I'm doing here. I didn't tape the craft sticks. I didn't do anything fancy like that. I just pressed hard with my hand. It worked just fine because you're just lightly tracing that shape down on the underside, and then you're going to go ahead and cut on that line to create another tree. Here you see me using hot glue to glue the pieces down. Now with this tree, the trick is you have to glue them down and gently tilt them at different angles. That's what's going to give your tree a nice little rustic look. You can't really see, I'm turning it sideways to show you really fast there. Sorry if that was too fast, but you're just kind of tilting each little piece at different little angles, and it gives it, you can see it better now that I'm holding it up, but it gives it a super cute look from the front. Now I found hot glue was just fine for this, and of course I'm filming and I don't want to, this is because everything was tilted. It would have taken me forever to balance things under everything if I was doing it with wet glue, so I didn't really have a choice with this one. But if you want a stronger hold, you can always add some super glue in there or some wood glue. Now here comes this piece of wood here. A lot of you asked me what I used to cut my thinner utility panel. I just showed you there. The original little saw that I had, the mini circular saw, actually broke, so I got a new one at Christmas time, and I bought a Dremel this time. I can leave the link below in my description box, but I absolutely love those little mini, I call them mini circular saws, you can call them Dremels, but they are wonderful for cutting wood. I tried cutting it with scissors, as you saw, and it was just too hard. It was hurting my hands so much, so I just went out in the garage, plugged that little puppy in, and cut those triangles. Within 5 minutes I was done, and the blade is so fine that it doesn't chop up the wood, so you don't have to sand the edges. I mean, it's just a clean cut. And this is what we end up with, you guys. This is our 3 little wooden rustic winter trees, and we're going to go ahead and add some snow now by painting them white. Now I wanted a little bit of wood to show through. Totally your choice on this, you guys. You can paint them a solid white, or you can flock them, or you can just dry brush white paint on. All of it would look good in my opinion. Just have fun with your craft. For the bottoms, I decide I'm going to recycle some little mini cans I have that had green chilies in them, and I took them outside and spray painted them white. And I'm using some recycled foam that I got from something I ordered in the mail. It worked perfect, but I decide I don't quite like it, so I end up taking some mesh material here. This is actually a top of an old bed skirt that I found at a thrift store for $1.50, so it was half-day price, so it would have been 75 cents. It was a king size bed skirt, and I just took the top off because to me it looks like a drop cloth, and it's a lot cheaper, and it's great for these kind of crafts when you want to wrap up the bottom of a little planter base. And that's it. Tied it with a bit of twine, and I love these. These wood beads are another thrift find that I got for $8 on half price day from the Goodwill, and I took them outside and I sprayed them with some matte white paint. Now I'm showing you how I still have some red sections. I had to bring them in ultimately after using a whole can and a half of another can to touch up the red, but I could not get every section and it was not cost effective. I would not recommend that. It would have been easier just to, I mean, if you're, frugal like me, I think it would be better to lay them down on a piece of plastic, paint one side, let it dry, turn them over, paint another side. You're going to use less paint that way, but if you don't want to, go ahead and spray paint them. And of course you can use a Dollar Tree wood beads, that would be just fine. Now this is a pattern I found online. I will put the link down below in my description box for this star. It's a 3D star, and I'm going to take you to the site that also gives you the directions on how to fold it. Now I'm also going to film that for those of you that are good at following along, but just in case I wanted you to have some more instruction that was a little more detailed. There's some drawings on that site as well so that you get it just right in case you're struggling. It wasn't that hard. The only thing that was hard is I did choose to use poster board. Now I did this on purpose because the end goal here is to try and make these stars look like wooden white stars because I'm making a garland. So I knew if I used paper that would be way too thin, and even cardstock, I'm not sure, still probably a little too lightweight. I wanted them to definitely hang down heavy. In fact, I do end up putting some hot glue drops on the back of the star in the bottom point to kind of add a little bit of weight so it hangs nicely. But I'm just folding them now to go ahead and make my 3D star. I did find it very helpful to use scissors and those little sharp tweezers, any sharp instrument you have, to get those points really, otherwise, I don't know how to say it, I guess you'll bend it, the crease won't go down the center of that point there without a little bit of help like you saw me do right there. So I'm just giving you a heads up on that so you guys know that you're going to need something sharp to help you do those points if you use poster board. For my size mantle, I went ahead and made 5 stars. So if you want it for a headboard or you have a bigger mantle, you're going to kind of have to measure and figure that part out. Now here's the most critical part. These are the little details you need to do so that it doesn't look cheap. Make sure that you use a nylon brush and apply a really generous layer of white paint. You want to go ahead and get brush strokes in there to imitate wood grain, so these look like little white wooden stars, and you'll see an up close of that in a minute. I use a paper clip at the top. This ends up being the best method for hanging those around the fat beads there because there wasn't a lot of space in between the beads, and I glued at the corner at the very tip, and look at that, it works perfect. This is such a perfect winter garland. I was so happy with how this came out. Let me know what you think. For this next DIY, you're just going to need some Dollar Tree wired twine and some craft sticks. And I've been wanting to try this for a while. I saw a bigger version of this made out of the little wreaths that they have at the Dollar Tree. the ones that are kind of like sticks or reeds. And I just thought this was a cute take on it, another tiered tray decor piece or a little accent piece on a shelf. But you just separate them evenly like I did there and then put them into round shapes as the best you can. You just kind of bend it. And now I'm taking some of the craft sticks and I'm going to go ahead and measure them out because we're going to make a little snowman hat. So I thought the brace on the front would be enough, the little rim of the hat, but I do end up putting an extra brace behind just to hold those pieces together. I'm giving it a light sand just to get it nice and smooth, and then I'm going to glue it on top of my snowman's head. This is a leftover wine bottle gift bag. It's perfect for a little bit of crafting material when you need some. And I'm using it to make a scarf. And we're keeping it in the winter theme here with just black and white, nice neutral colors, so we can just have winter. And I'm going to go ahead and garnish it with a twine bow, some pine, and some little white berries. Of course, I have to paint his hat, his little top hat black, and I'm taking some white chalk paint here and just frosting him up just a little bit. I'm frosting up the pine just to give him that snowy winter look, and that's it. This is how my project came out. For this do-it-yourself, I used the plastic bowl from the Dollar Tree, 3 candle holders, Walmart picks, some Dollar Tree pine, some of their tea lights, and that's it. And I start off again painting my plastic plate with some chalk paint, white. We're kind of sticking with white here because it's a winter DIY. I love to celebrate the natural colors of what happens in winter. So you might see the red berries, pine cones, snow. There isn't a whole lot of color in winter, but there's a beauty in that neutral color too. I love that. And I use fairy lights usually too. So it's a nice transition again from losing all of that sparkle at Christmas to moving into the winter and still feeling really cheerful in the process. So, and then from here, my mantle will eventually turn into Valentine's Day decor as well. But for those of you that don't decorate for Valentine's Day, and I know there's a lot of you, this is a great transition into the winter season to add a lot of sparkle and beauty to your home. So I just start off, as you saw, by putting the glass candles down where I want them. And I chose the ones with the silver too, because that's also very perfect in my opinion for winter, because winter's gray. So I don't really like gray unless it's a sweater, but it picks up that whole feeling, I guess, with the sparkle. And I just used Dollar Tree pine there to fill in most of it to give it bulk and cover up most of the white, because that's literally just a filler. What's going to lay on top is the more classy and expensive looking pine picks that I got from Walmart. Again, 97 cents. I lay those on top. I just cut them, as you can see, and made a nice decorative little bowl there. Taking regular old table salt and putting it inside my candle holders to hold the tea lights. Now that is great. If some wax spills over, you can just dump it all out, and it also kind of imitates snow. And I think this came up so elegant. If you enjoyed today's video and had fun, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It really does help my channel here on YouTube. And as always, until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.